Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Leslie Rogers. Thank you for joining. I'm a psychologist and the owner of Mental Health Talk, LLC, where we work to promote dialogue around mental health and overall well-being. I'm also, guys, the uh, publisher and chief editor of the Mental Health Talk magazine, which we'll talk about later as well. On here, we have with us Tom O'Connor, who's a former FBI agent. He entered onto duty with the FBI in 1997 and retired, ironically, in 2014 on 9/11. He was assigned to the Washington Field Office's Joint Terrorism Task Force, where he worked both international and domestic terrorism cases. Next, we have Matt McCauley on here with us as well. He's a former police officer, right, Matt?
Yep. And
yep.
PD.
Former police officer and first responder with the New York Police Department. Matt is a 9/11 illness attorney who has assisted hundreds of FBI employees register for the World Trade Center Health Program, which we'll talk about later, and the Victims Compensation Fund, again, which we'll talk about later as well. Teresa Roth just joined us as well. She's the wife of Bob Roth, who died in one of the attacks, correct? Is that, no, he didn't die in one of the attacks, he died of an illness, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. He, and which we'll talk about later as well, the illnesses from the 9/11 attacks. Bob was a first responder, and again, he passed away from 9/11 illnesses. So this is going to be a great topic today, guys. I'm so glad that you guys have come. Thank you for joining in on this very important discussion as we reflect on the dreadful events that unfolded on September 11th, 2001, 22 years ago today. So many lives were altered on that day, and many individuals continue to struggle emotionally and medically. The anniversary can evoke a range of emotions that include grief, sadness, and even fear. Many people have personal connections to the events or know someone who is directly affected, which can amplify these emotions. For those who have lived through the events or witnessed them unfold, the anniversary can trigger traumatic memories and flashbacks. The anniversary of 9/11 serves as a reminder of a deep traumatic event in modern history. 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 crashes into the World Trade Center's North Tower. 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 crashes into the World Trade Center South Tower. 9:37 a.m., Flight 77 crashes into the Pentagon. 9:59 a.m., the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. 10:02 a.m., Flight 93 crashes into an empty field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And 10:28 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. The attacks in our country claimed a total of 2,977 lives. 2,753 lives were lost at the World Trade Center. 343 were firefighters. 184 people died at the Pentagon near Washington, D.C., and 40 individuals died outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Let's pause for a brief moment to reflect on the lives lost and the impact of those lost. Thank you. Tom, I'd like to read a passage from your article that you authored in the Mental Health Talk magazine. I'd like you to speak about that. So on 9/11, as agents scrambled to assist at the World Trade Center attack, Special Agent Lenny Hatton rushed into the towers to save lives. When the towers came down, Lenny was killed alongside hundreds of other first responders. Tom, where were you on that day?
So, first of all, thanks, Doc, for putting this together and, kind of getting this group together and the people who are signing in. There's a lot of familiar names popping up, which is pretty cool. The story that I have from 9/11, and everybody's got a story. They're all different, But we were at the Washington field office getting ready to go to New York to assist with the events taking place there as we were all watching television with the second plane coming in. We knew straight away when the first plane hit that on a perfect Tuesday morning, not a cloud in the sky, that an airliner doesn't fly into a building in New York City. So we were pretty sure. We had already been to the Africa bombings. We've been to the USS Cole, which were all Al-Qaeda attacks, and that was the first thing literally that we thought of when we saw this. And shortly after the plane struck the Pentagon at 9:37, we were on the squad, and Scott Stanley, who was an agent that we worked very closely with on the squad, he and I had previously been in law enforcement and firefighting, paramedic stuff. He was, and we realized that the place we wanted to not be was in the office, and then get tied up with all the important things that need to get done. But as part of the evidence response team, we literally jumped in my car, which was down in the B3 level of the office, and took that 1 mile approximately drive across the 14th Street Bridge to the Pentagon. And as soon as you got out of the tunnel on the Southwest Expressway, you could see this thick black smoke coming from the Pentagon. So we knew that this was not a good day, and this was something bad that had happened. One of our agents, Chris Combs, was actually teaching a class with firefighters, and they started getting calls for smoke coming from the Pentagon. And so as we made our way across the 14th Street Bridge, there was really not a lot of traffic because everything stopped. I used the breakdown lane to get across. And interesting in how strange a day this really was. When we pulled up to the exit to get off at the Pentagon, we actually got off at the wrong exit, but that turned out to be okay. There was a Navy officer standing at the top of the ramp, kind of blocking the ramp, and so we pulled up with our lights on and stuff to let him know we were with the FBI task force and we were going down there. And it turned out it was Kirk Lippold, the captain of the USS Cole, who was standing at the top of that thing. He had just come from a briefing at the agency about the attack on the USS Cole in 2000. So we made our way down to the Pentagon and immediately started to set up what we knew was going to be a long-term evidence and remains recovery. This was literally 15 minutes after the plane struck. So there was the immediate response was, medical, getting in there. Firefighters were showing up on scene. They were laying down foam. All this stuff was going on. And then Garrett McKenzie showed up on scene, and somebody came up to us and said that there was what they believed might have been the electronics from the plane that was said to have flown into the building. And so he and I went into A&E Drive to look for that area. And I remember literally like it was yesterday. And in A&E Drive is a place that is, it's open to drive through, excuse me. And we had to use a flashlight because it was so dark because of the smoke. And we went in there, and it wasn't the front of the plane, it was the rear of the plane. It made it through that point. And so from then on, we set up our evidence recovery and worked with the military, worked with the firefighters. The urban search and rescue teams from FEMA came down, and we were on scene for about 3.5 weeks doing evidence recovery and human remains recovery. And we worked 2 shifts down there. It was about an 18-hour day for that time, and we would overlap, and there was a day shift. My job was to work on the night shift and coordinate the efforts along with an agent named Doug Edmondson. We kind of led the operation evidence-wise on the night shift. So that's kind of my story. Also, my story involves my wife, Jean, who was also an FBI agent. She was at Quantico for initial training for the evidence team and was told to stay there because they were kind of locking everybody down. And she and a guy named Rob Schwinger said, screw that, we're going to the Pentagon. And she came down, and we worked there together. And we retired on September 11th, 2019, not 14, but 2019. So 4 years ago today, we retired, and we did so on that day so we could honor those who we've lost on that day and since that day who were not able to retire. So kind of that was Jean's great idea, of which many of her ideas are great. So that's
Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that. I imagine as we come to this point every year, many of us are reliving those events. Did you experience any losses during that time?
Well, I mean, when we were down there, Chris Combs actually lost several relatives who were on the fire department. Chris was with us down there. Personally, I didn't lose anyone at the Trade Center. I had good friends that are still good friends that lost several people in the Pentagon. And we've literally been living this, and Matt and Teresa are the true form of this. They're living this, 22 years later. We just lost Jack Hess a few weeks back. So the FBI has lost 22 people, and actually more, but in the process of documenting that, to 9/11 illnesses. So we've lost a lot of friends, more than you would think. We have over 300 people who have some form of 9/11 illness, and we can talk about that as we go forward. But this literally is Osama bin Laden reaching up from the grave today and taking people from it.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to that discussion in a little bit. Matt, where were you? You were a police officer in New York. Were you a police officer during that time?
So I had just retired from NYPD, and my history, I was in New York City. I was a paramedic, then I became a New York City police officer, and I went to law school while I was a police officer. And while I was in law school, I had the opportunity to actually work in the U.S. Attorney's Office on an assignment with the New York Division of, it was their terrorism and organized crime division at that point, which was Ken Karras, Patrick Fitzgerald, and Mike Garcia. I was an intern for them, and they laughed because I was a 30-year-old intern who was a police officer. So needless to say, I wasn't your typical intern. But I wanted to work there, and during, what Tom just brought up, I actually had the opportunity to work on the Tanzania and Kenya embassy bombing cases while I was there. So to get there, I retired from NYPD, and I was doing a clerkship in the Second Circuit, which is directly across from 26 Federal Plaza. So those who were in New York that day, exactly, my window faced 26 Federal Plaza. And we were sitting in my office that morning at 8:30, talking about the night's events before when the first plane went by. And it went right by, for all intents and purposes, over 26 Fed, and hit the building. I had been there in '93 as a police officer and a paramedic when the first bombing happened. So I literally picked the phone up and called where I was still working as a medic and got on the phone. Did not know. I thought it was a small plane because it just went by. In retrospect, still hearing the jets, I guess it wasn't. Fast forward to a little while later, and this is one of the things, I have to thank you so much for doing this. And for my own personal side of things, I generally don't do anything on 9/11. I sort of try to block it out as much as possible. I've gotten a lot more involved in mental health issues as an advocate and some of the other things I've done. So I think this is incredibly important. So when Tom told me today that he was doing this, I was like, I'll do mental health, no problem. I just, I have an event to go to later on this afternoon. It's at a memorial. But other than that, I have to applaud you for doing this because there's so many people out there that need your help and just need to know that they can talk. So to come back to that day for me, and where this gets into my own mental health, is I'm staring at the tower when the second plane hit. So we're north of the Trade Center. And to this day, I can tell you, I can still feel the heat and the concussion that came off that building just because I was staring out an open window in 40 Foley. and you could feel it. You could feel, you could feel a bit of the concussion and the heat come off the building at that exact moment. And you heard Tom, who's in the weeds of exactly what he's doing, what he's seeing, and where he is at that moment, looking for potential evidence. I think there's so many people who have those experiences that it's just there, and having the ability for them to talk to you about things, I think, is phenomenal. Or just sort of have that resource is there. So I end up down at Ground Zero as a responder. The first thing I did in 40 Foley was tell everybody to get the F out of the building. Which led to, I'm a retired police officer, second career, and I have sort of 25-year-olds asking me if the supervisors have to tell them they have to leave first. And I'm like, get out of the building. We're kind of in a bad place. And ended up being involved in the responder side of things, worked at Ground Zero, and then over the years, got incredibly involved with 9/11 issues. Here I retired from being a responder, and yet I ended up being back more and more involved with it. Was down in D.C. for the passage of the initial Zadroga Act, then went back. Ran the teams with John Stewart and John Field. Very deeply involved in things. Got my son involved. You always see me in the background of the pictures. And then I'm going to turn this back over to the FBI because I always give people credit. In 2019, when we were there trying to get the reauthorization, the FBI added an incredibly important part of this because we needed a national picture. The two things we dealt with in 2019 were talking to Congress about the survivors and then the national side of it. And Tom and the rest of the FBI, Brian and Scott Stanley and Gene and so many other people and Bob Roth's story, so many other people that were involved with this that came to DC to say, look, this isn't a New York issue, this is a national issue. People came in from every single office in the FBI. That resonated with people because we weren't just talking about New York at that point. So as I do this at everything that involves the FBI and the FBI Association, I know I'm not supposed to say FBI Agents Association, the organization played an enormous role in this. And Tom Monell testified. So everybody remembers Louis Alvarez, and everybody remembers John Stewart testifying. Two people before Louis Alvarez is Tom Monell. This bill doesn't get done without his testimony. These benefits that are out there do not get done without the work that got put there. The stories of Bob, the stories of everybody else that were there. So when it comes to this, thank you so much for running the program. And anytime Tom wants me to talk about anything when it comes to this, with mental health, I think it's incredibly important. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you for sharing and for disclosing your own personal experiences with that. Sometimes we find that that's difficult to do. And like you, so many other people, I am sure, relive these experiences every year that we talk about it, right? It's reliving the events, right? So thank you, Matt, for also normalizing therapeutic interventions as well and engagement, because like you, others could benefit from it as well. This is a question for both Matt, you and Tom. So how have you guys coped after all these years?
Well, I'll start that one. You try and keep it healthy coping as best you can. I think the involvement we had with Matt in working to get the 9/11 first responders and those who we've lost, their families, to make sure that they're taken care of has been something that is just completely, encompassing and it's something that it's almost therapeutic for those people that get involved in it, because you see so many people that are having difficult times. I mean, we had a couple of people that I wanted to invite today to come on that have illnesses, and sadly both of them are at medical, one for chemo and one for just a checkup. So that's one of the ways that Gene and I have kind of coped with this is staying involved and meeting up with Matt and really becoming good friends with Teresa is one of the ways that we've stayed on top of it. And
Yeah.
This is coffee in my thing. It may not be later, but it's coffee in the morning.
Yeah. I think that this is therapeutic, though. You know, you guys have heard of exposure therapy. You know, being able to talk about it in healthy spaces and in safe spaces is therapeutic, such as this platform that we're on today, right? Remembering, right? So I don't think I've ever disclosed this, but I will. Many of you may know that I was also with the FBI for 25 years. I was an intelligence analyst working in a counterterrorism division. And actually, during 9/11, I was with Washington Field Office doing investigations. And yeah. And I have very vivid memories of that day. And as you guys were talking, and as I was reading through the timeline of events, I started to get chills. And I was starting to get a bit emotional because I too remember when the first plane hit. Now, my recollection is I don't remember. I was trying to, before I came on this platform, I was trying to remember what was my initial reaction. I think I thought it was an accident. And of course, I wasn't an agent. So, but I remember going into the executive's office and all of us were in his office and we were just standing there and all like, what just happened, right? And when the first plane hit, but then the second plane hit, and I remember a couple co-workers turned around and just ran out, got their things and left, right? And at that minute, we knew that we were under attack. I did not leave. I stayed and decided to stay and help. I helped man the task force, 9/11 task force. However, you know, what was frightening for me is when we had to go and we were all escorted to go into the basement because we didn't know where that last plane was. I'm getting chills that I talk about it now. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, am I not going to see my son again? Or am I not going to be home? And at that time, we couldn't leave because everything was locked down. And the traffic was so horrendous outside. Even the people that left, they sat in their cars for hours and couldn't get home. So it was best for me to just stay and just work and help where I could. And my son was fine. However, you know, remembering those events are quite traumatic for some. And like you said, Matt, we relive it. You relive it every time you talk about it and discuss it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. You were going to say something?
Yes. When you said coping, I think it's important, especially for programs like the one that you're running. You're coping. It's not. There's not a singular issue. It's not like one specific action happened, and then we moved forward after that day. You know, there's people on here that have different levels. Fortunately, as we continue forward, there's going to be additional coping. So, you know, here Tom and I are in two different locations involved with the actual incident itself. Okay, so you have agents that, just to put it in the FBI perspective, you have agents that are there that day. You have that fear about whether you're going to go home or not. So your family is worried about you from that perspective. And Teresa, I'm going to bring you into this for a second. You know, you have Bob, who is at a place with other agents who are doing things. So there's the coping that goes on with the fear of that. And then we move forward over the years. And then the 9/11 illnesses start. And then you have the family members and the people who were sick during that time period. So their coping changes because they're no longer just coping with the issue itself from that day, memories that we all have. Now you're coping with an illness. Then you take Teresa, who's doing an amazing job as far as being an advocate. And yet at the same time, now her coping becomes the loss of her husband. And as we continue on, as an agency, you see the FBI. And I get the advantage of seeing certain things from different places and how different agencies work. You know, I'll say it because I don't work for the FBI. You know, you did an investigative job. You did a horrible job taking care of your people for the first 15 years. And then everybody gets involved with it, which is great because you move forward. You don't look back. Then all of a sudden there's a 180-degree turn. And I have to applaud the FBI because I will tell you right now that it leads the agencies in what they've done for their people once they started doing things and how they've recognized it. I mean, you have a director that shows at and I'm going to probably use the term wrong, staff members' funerals, not just agents, but shows up at staff members' funerals for 9/11 related illnesses. So you just continue to move forward. So the coping mechanism, I think, and I'm not trained in this, is it's just fluid. It continues to change, but you have to continue to support it. You can't stop. So these programs like you're doing really need to continue on and on and on, because it's going to morph itself into different things for different people at different times.
Yeah. And like you said, everybody copes differently. For some to talk about and to have organizations and do things that are meaningful is a coping mechanism to help them move forward, right, without being stuck. We are often, especially when you're talking about trauma and PTSD, we often talk about the word stuck, being stuck and not being able to move, right. You guys are doing great things that we're going to talk about in a moment as well. And Teresa, we're going to get to you in a few minutes as well, too. And this seems like a good time to transition into our next discussion. Did you guys know that to date, more victims have passed from 9/11 related illnesses than those who lost their lives during the actual attacks? The FBI alone has lost 22 first responders. Over 300 FBI employees have identified illnesses from exposure from toxins on 9/11, which brings us to this next topic. Let's talk about the multiple myeloma in 9/11 responders and survivors. So let me define it really quickly. And if you guys want to add anything to this, you can. Multiple myeloma is a blood cancer that develops in plasma cells in the bone marrow. Does that sound about correct? Okay. So Tom, the following was posted by you today, actually. And I wanted to ask, what you meant by this. You said 22 years later, 9/11 is still taking the lives of our heroes from all three terrorist sites. What do you mean by that?
So it's, New York, obviously it was just an enormous, awful event in and of itself, right? And you see all of the TV footage and all this kind of stuff. There's much less footage of the Pentagon because it's the Pentagon, and we actually could secure the area from press and stuff from coming down and just taking photos inside the area. And Shanksville was open field, which unfortunately was also a closed mining site, which added to the toxins that that flight had. So all three sites, we have lost people. Just the FBI is as you said, 22, and there's more than that. It's just in the process of identifying. So all three of these sites, whether it be Shanksville, the Pentagon, or 9/11 up in New York, all of these sites we've lost people, and it's firefighters, it's police, it's construction workers, and that's why the number is well over the 3,000 that perished on the day of 9/11. So the FBI has well over 300 people that are identified with some type of illness, and that's just going to continue to increase, sadly.
Now, do you have stats from other departments?
Well, I'll go to Matt on that because he's intricately involved with the NYPD, FDNY, and all the other first responders across the board. So the FBI is just part of the drama and trauma that is going across the first responder and survivors, people who are just living, going to school in New York City within that geographical area. If you were in there in that smoke, and whether you were at the Pentagon, the Shanksville, or in New York City, sadly, you have a much higher chance of coming down with something than the average person.
Matt, when you answer the question about the stats, can you tell us why it's important to spread awareness around this topic?
Well, so with the statistics, so FDNY officially, if you remember, official designations have to do with official documentation and decisions that are made by jobs. So those numbers are dramatically underreported, dramatically. The FDNY lost its 341st firefighter the other day. They lost 343 that day. Now, those are the ones that are reported. There's definitely higher numbers. NYPD lost 23 that day. And Louis Alvarez in 2019 was the 222nd police officer to die. They're into 300 and change right now. So it's 10 times more than the number of New York City police officers. The first responder numbers are up. I was at a presentation yesterday where the health program actually brought the statistics up that there's an estimate of over 6,000 people that have died as a result of 9/11 related illnesses. So it's twice the number of the people who were there. The Victims Compensation Fund has actually received more death claims in the second round for illnesses than they received for people who passed away. I think when you deal with this community, I'll give you the example of why the statistics are actually skewed. The FBI is trying to do a nice memorial service for its people in the end of September. They sent out a request to get people to be part of this memorial service, and a lot of people all of a sudden like, why do they want my medical information? Why do they want to know about me? What do they want to? These are employees. There's this sort of chilling effect about sort of talking about it or even stepping forward. There's a guilt. There's a survivor's guilt that's there about, well, I only have GERD, I only have sinus, I only have multiple myeloma. I can tell you from Louis Alvarez was a very close friend. We went to the police academy together. And in the end, he was 60 rounds of chemotherapy in, and he would sit there and say, there's people who are much worse than me. I shouldn't even be doing this. Because you have that sort of mentality that is driven in these professions. It's always, it's always about somebody else. I still tell the joke now where I say, if I asked you to come over and help me sheetrock my basement, you'd be more than happy to help me do it. If I asked you to actually go to the World Trade Center health program, even though you have stage 4 cancer, you're like, it's for somebody else. It's really not for me. So, the environment that this group lives in, leads to underreporting. And you just keep moving forward. You try to get the information out to as many people as possible.
Yeah. So let me tell you guys, avoidance is one of the a huge underlying symptom of PTSD, right? A lot of people avoid, some people are, it's better to not know than to know, right? Because it's scary. I think that knowing, what does that mean? And I'm going to read a write-in comment that someone wrote in. But, what does that mean to know that I'm ill? How long do I have to live? There's so many questions that come along with it. That's scary, right? Not only for you, but for your loved ones as well, right? So avoidance may be easier than to face something head on, right?
Doc, just weeks ago, I was honored to be asked to speak at the graveside for Jack Hess. And after that event, at least 5 people who were with us at the Pentagon that were there came up and said to me, I really got to sign up for this World Trade Center thing. I was like, we're 22 years out. Matt's 1,000% on board with those numbers that people have kind of just put it off because they don't want to know or don't think and don't want to take from someone else. Is something we hear all the time. I'm fine. I don't want to take anything. Signing up for these programs, like Gene and I and all the people in World Trade Center Health Program go to an annual physical, and you get a lot of blood work done. You get chest X-rays, all of these things that are there to potentially identify something before it gets to the point where something can't be done. So that's important in and of itself. And it also adds another stressor to your life, right? I mean, because you go for those medical checkups every year, and it's been we literally did our physicals the morning of Jack Hess's wake. And we're still waiting for the results. So, like you are on pins and needles now waiting for those results to come back and hope that everything's good with all your blood work. And so it's important that people sign up and it's because it's a big bureaucracy. It's not always easy to do. And that's why the FBI Agents Association works so closely with Matt, because he's been doing this for so long. He is an attorney that specializes in this, and he can get you signed up, right? And that's the first step, because if you don't sign up for these programs, your family is going to be the one that suffers when something happens to you and you're not covered. And the World Trade Center Health Program pays for your medical bills, which can be devastating for a family. To put that much, I mean, it's not all insurance covered, I can tell you that. People are devastated by the amount of money that it takes to be treated.
If I can just add on to that about the World Trade Center Health Program, which is really specific to this program today. There's a mental health aspect of the World Trade Center Health Program as well, and I think that in our environment, There's always a concern about mental health and job performance and where you're going in the future. And talking to somebody from NYPD, I can tell you straight out that it's been a problem for years. I've lost 6 friends to suicide over the course of my law enforcement career. And it's brutal. And, you know, the one thing I can tell you, and I will give you the example, is a separation from the World Trade Center health program, mental health programs, and law enforcement. They do not go out there. They're not out there to try to take people's firearms away. They're not out there to try to, you know, get involved or create problems, or else these programs wouldn't exist. We did an outreach in Cleveland about, it's pre-COVID, so it's got to be about 4 years ago, with the FBI office, with HRD and Mike Huff and a bunch of other people that were there. And when we explained everything, in the end, the doctor who works, I guess, in-house said, how do we get the medical records from the World Trade Center health program? I said, you can't. Well, we're the FBI. What do you mean I can't get the medical records? You can't. Nobody would go to these programs. I will say, from my own personal experience, with somebody who has a lot of the same concerns as other people in law enforcement, it is a safe harbor. It is separate from the jobs. It is a safe harbor. And I say that with the same concerns that I think everybody else here would always have, which is, well, am I going to run into this issue where I'm going to lose my firearm? They're going to end up taking it away. Now, security clearances, you obviously have to talk to people about things, and you have to be honest. So if you're on certain medications, it's a different story. But they're not there to try to get involved in your law enforcement career or your future. And that's from the top level all the way down. So I say that with, you know, that is a safe harbor for law enforcement. And,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, the important part, like you said, Matt, is we want to make sure you're safe and that others are safe as well.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. So I allow people to write in and give statements. So I'm going to read one statement, and then Teresa, if okay with you, I'd like you to tell your story. So let me read this. This is from a write-in. I retired from the FBI at the end of 2022 after 26 years of service. I was a member of an evidence response team in both LA and Philly for over 16 years, with a 10-year break while serving as a supervisor at headquarters and in Anchorage. While with the LAERT, I was a member of the response teams to both the Pentagon and Franks Hill after 9/11. Once the FBI began adding the 9/11 related deaths to the Wall of Honor, I was struck by the number of individuals joining the wall who I knew either from ERT trainings over the years or the deployments. I had been living with a relatively minor, manageable 9/11 related illness. However, it continues to negatively impact my lifestyle and activities. In addition, on occasion, and more so as the number of line of duty deaths continue to increase, it feels like you're living on borrowed time. I thought that was so powerful. It feels like you're living on borrowed time. I wonder if others feel the same and if it's normal. One of you guys want to answer that?
Yeah, I can jump on that. 100%. And it goes back to that, you know, the World Trade Center medical. You just are waiting for that other shoe to drop. And, you know, as we see very close friends who get ill, and sadly, some of them pass away, you can't help but think, you know, you try not to think, well, what about me? But there's just no way around that, right? When you see, and as this retired agent said, you know, the Wall of Honor, getting those names on the wall, that was the FBI Agents Association continuing to work with headquarters to get those people recognized and to put their names on the wall. And the reason we fought so hard for it was exactly what that man or woman wrote, was that we want people to know the sacrifice and the service and what people gave in their line of duty service at 9/11 places, and put them on the Wall of Honor, so that people can see the sacrifice that was given on 9/11 and following 9/11. So yeah, it is 100%. You know, I think you try and enjoy every day. You try and you know, live life to its fullest, right? I mean, I'm sitting in a cabin in the mountains. I didn't move here because I was sick and tired of where I was living. I wanted to do something different and to get out and enjoy myself. And with Gene, and you gotta do it, right? And that's because you're thinking that next month maybe I all of a sudden have something that, and you just hope it doesn't happen. So he's, whoever that was that wrote it in, thank you for your service at the Pentagon, and it's fresh kills, but you're not alone in that thought.
Thank you. Next, we have Teresa Roth. She's the wife of Bob Roth, who died of a 9/11 illness, and I'm going to have her tell her story, share her story.
Thank you for having me today. Thank you, Tom and Matt, for all that you do too, and continue to do, and Gene as well. My husband, Bob Roth, was a FBI first responder with WFO and the ERT, and he was at Quantico with Gene the same morning that the Pentagon was struck. And like Gene, he jumped in his car and hurried on scene because that's what they do. He was obviously on a shift like everybody else and was gone for a couple of weeks. The morning that 9/11 happened, I was home with our kids. We have 5 children. I was pregnant with number 4, very pregnant with number 4. And, my first thought was, we don't know when we're going to see Dad again. And I had to tell my kids something. So I remember talking to them and saying, we watched the news. We homeschooled, actually. We were watching the news and saying something is going on. Dad is there. He's going to be working this, and we're not sure when we will see him again, but we are going to go about our day as if it's a normal day because we're home and we're safe. So my first thought was to secure the kids, keep everybody at home safe, knowing that Bob was taking care of what he needed to take care of, and we were taking care of our end of the deal. My end of the deal was a little precarious because trying to keep the kids informed that something was up with Dad, and the country, but not having them so scared. Fast forward, we ended up having 5 kids, and on our oldest daughter's 13th birthday, Bob had taken the day off work, and about 6 weeks before that, he had gone for a run with several of the kids. They were on their bikes or scooters, and I was with our baby, pushing the baby stroller on a walk. And I came home and I saw Bob limping up the street with kids pushing their bikes. And I said, what happened? And he said that he hurt his hip flexor. So being an athlete, you really think nothing of that. You come in, you throw a bag of peas on it, you take some Motrin, you have your dinner, you put your leg up, and the next day you get up and move on. And that's exactly what he did. Well, about 2 weeks into it, he could not pivot that leg. And he started using a pair of crutches that I had purchased for the kids to play with. And he scheduled a doctor's appointment, and they said, no, you're doing exactly what you need to do. Just ice, Motrin, it'll get better. And a few weeks after that, he went back and said, it's not getting better. I want an MRI. And the day that they scheduled the MRI was September 25th, which was our daughter's 13th birthday. So because we had homeschooled, that morning we had a birthday celebration, a breakfast birthday with the daughter. Bob took the day off. His appointment with the doctor was that afternoon, around 4 o'clock. About 4:45, I got a call, and he said, he's whispering in the phone, and he said, you need to get away from the kids, go to the garage. I need to tell you something. So I'm in the garage trying to be quiet from the kids, and he's whispering to me that they've found cancer and they're putting him in a wheelchair, and he's very concerned. He was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which manifests in different ways. I know that Lauren Schuler, I see my daughter is actually on here, and she's informing me it's her 12th birthday. She was 13 when he died. Thanks, Lex. Anyway, multiple myeloma does manifest in different ways. I know that Lauren Schuler has logged on. She has hers has manifested differently, and she has a different story to tell. But with Bob, it made holes in his bones, and initially it ate his hip socket. So he had to have his hip ball replaced. Everything was replaced, and we were initially told it was a plasmacytoma. They got it all, and it was going to be fine. Later, we discovered it wasn't fine, and we went through a course of treatment that was 18 months that did not work, and he ended up passing away 18 months later. At the time of his death, our kids were ages 3 to 13. So I have a heart for families who have gone through this, who have lost somebody, who are traveling to the appointments, who are hauling their kids around, who are trying to be the comforter for their kids and for their spouse and for their friends. It's a hard road. And like you mentioned, Dr. Rogers, I think that the exposure and constantly talking about it does help to minimize the ache, because you kind of spread the peanut butter out on the whole piece of bread instead of having it all in one bite. In that way, I have helped throughout the year with various FBI Agents Association events. I try to keep in touch with other widows. I'm meeting some this afternoon on 9/11, just because it's a good thing for us to get together and for them to have a common denominator in our discussions and in our feelings about the day. But spreading it out does make a difference. And I think encouraging people to find something to be thankful for in all of this, even if it's the support of others or your faith. Our family had a strong faith backbone, so we relied very heavily on that. We had lots of friends coming in to help us. We've had the FBI Agents Association family, other people supporting us, and we try very hard to support back, not just be absorbers, but to reflect it back to other people. So that is how we have tried to handle it. My daughter, who was 13 the day her dad died, is getting married later this month. And that is a reverberating effect of loss, because we're grieving that. We're grieving the absence. And the grief doesn't stop, even though he's been gone for 15 years now.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Hey, Doc, if I can kind of add to Bob's story a little bit and how it kind of really made a huge difference in the FBI 9/11 first responders going forward. At the time Bob was sick, there was another agent, Wesley Yu, who was also with us at the Pentagon, and Steve Carr, who had moved up to the Baltimore office but was with us at the Pentagon on 9/11. And these guys were sick, very sick, and nobody really kind of put things together right away. And it was Scott Stanley, who's that 1,000-pound brain, who came to Gene and I. And because I was with I think I was vice president of the Agents Association at the time, said, hey, you know what? These guys are, I mean, like Teresa said, Bob was a runner. He was in great shape. Shouldn't be getting this disease that people are getting in their 70s. And so we kind of started looking into it. And at first, when we went to headquarters, there wasn't a lot of medical research that had been done. It was in the process. So, you know, one of the best things that happened for our responders was Scott Stanley had met Matt McCauley, and that kind of really opened up a lot of eyes, and we were able to get some fact-based and get people recognized. But it took a decade of fighting to get that done. So Bob's illness was not in vain in one way, because he really was a catalyst to getting people taken care of. And so that is something that I always, and Teresa has been deeply involved in this entire effort to make things better for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable, Teresa, and sharing. I really appreciate that. And I think it normalizes, what others may be going through, and it validates as well. It gives other people a voice to speak about what they're going through as well. And hopefully it curbs some of the fears behind, seeking treatment as well, medical treatment, as well as mental health services as well. So Lauren Schuler, I did see her log on. Hi, Lauren. I was hoping that you could come up. If you want to jump up, you can. But Lauren was another one who was impacted by an illness post 9/11. And in fact, we received a text from her this morning that she was at a doctor's appointment, I think getting biopsies. Is that what she said, Tom?
I think it was just like one of her follow-up things.
Okay, yeah. So,
For people who are going through this stuff, it's a
yeah.
constant monitoring. And Lisa said it's getting to the hospital, getting to the doctor's office, all of these things that it really is all encompassing for people going through this.
Yeah, exactly. Like we said earlier, a lot of lives were altered. Some lives were altered forever. Lives will never be the same, right? What's important here and what I'm hearing is the support systems that you guys have had and that you continue to create within each other is really important in coping and moving forward. The support systems that you guys have created as a family, in getting these projects up and going and making sure everyone is taken care of is really important to living a meaningful life, right? So Tom and Matt, so if it was something that you would want readers to know, like in this moment, and that could, any final words or contact information or anything like that, what would that be?
Well, I'll jump on it first, Matt. I think the important thing is for someone who is a responder to any one of these sites to make sure that you are signed up for the World Trade Center Health Program and the Victims Compensation Fund. And if you need assistance in doing that, Matt, I can't say, I get nothing except satisfaction for working with Matt in getting people signed up for these programs, because you really need to be involved in the programs. And if you're someone who was in the geographical area in New York City during and there's time periods when you qualify for when you were there, how much time you were on target, but get a hold of Matt McCauley. He is the person who we go to literally on a daily basis for people that we need to get signed up. He's done hundreds of FBI employees. And I have to give a shout out to Mike Huff and his team at FBI headquarters and Human Resource Division. Those guys have been with us throughout this entire thing, and it hasn't been easy. For FBI agents that fall from this illness, we have about 30 children that just one part of the programs is the Memorial FBI Agent Association Memorial College Fund. We are putting and have put through 30 children just from the 9/11 illnesses and deaths. So that's putting them through college, 75% housing, tuition, books, everything they need to go to college. And Teresa's kids were thrilled that the final child, Kyle, is now enrolled in college. The association is, and my wife Jean she was a trustee for 12 years, just stepped down as executive director of the association and still working special projects. And she knows these kids extremely well and is watching their grades to make sure that they're doing well. So programs like the FBI Agents Association Memorial College Fund, the Victims Compensation Fund, the FBI Agents Association Membership Assistance Fund, all of these things are there for the families of people who are going through difficult times. So I talk about this till I'm blue in the face. Make sure you're signed up, even when you're not sick. right? That's the time you need signed up, because signing up when you're dealing with all the medical issues is very, very difficult. So, get a hold of me, get a hold of the Agents Association. We'll get you to Matt. Go to Matt McCauley on Instagram. Go to Matt will tell you how to get a hold of him to do this, but it's a no-brainer. So that's my final thought.
Matt just posted his information in the comment section. So the World Trade Center Health Program and the Victims Compensation Fund. Now that's not exclusively to FBI. That's for anyone impacted, right?
Right. So you brought up a good point right here. So, your position as an analyst, there are plenty of people who were at all of these sites who were not, and I'm going to use the term wrong, sorry, Tom, but weren't uniformed or actual agents. There's plenty of people that were there that were different roles, but the fact that they were there supporting their operations completely puts them into a responder category. There's other categories that the Pentagon were working on. It really has more to do with the military than it would the FBI with private contractors. But there's people who were there who were not agents, who have passed away from 9/11 illnesses, that were working on communications, and their families have been taken care of. The entire building of 26 Federal Plaza, where you have people who really, they weren't at ground zero, they were doing what they were doing with respect to the rest of the world of criminal investigation and supporting it. They're all eligible to be in the program as well, even though they weren't there. They may be in as a survivor versus a responder, but the programs are still there for them. In no way, shape, or form does this get taken away from somebody. It doesn't reduce somebody else's benefits. I'm 22 years into talking about the fact of, well, I'm not sick, somebody else was sick, or if I do this now, I'm going to, it's karma, it's a lot of things. And I get it. I come from that world, but I will say this, it's not for you, it's for your family. Get into the programs, get registered, because if God forbid something happens, and I'm always the most positive person in the world, nothing's going to happen, but God forbid something happens, to not have to go through a registration process while you're being treated or something else like that is great. You're already in the system, your benefits will be taken care of. When it comes to the Victims Compensation Fund, I'm not going to say who they are, but we've had I've worked very closely with people who filed their own cases with the FBI. And I'm always happy to answer questions. I'm not this lawyer that's out there, like, if you talk to me, I have to I'm charging you. So I've helped people through that, and they've gotten awards who have already filed their own cases, and they've paid back to the FBI. They've paid it forward in donations to the scholarship funds and done other things. If there's questions about things that you've done or frustrations, there's a lot of frustrations out there about some of these programs. They're probably the same frustrations, but I do know how to work through them a little bit better sometimes. I'm always happy to answer the questions. You can ask Scott Stanley, you can ask anybody, Teresa. If somebody has a question and they filed their own case, usually the first thing I say to them is, whatever you do, don't reach out to another lawyer, because you don't need one. You've done everything yourself. I'm happy to help you with the answers to the questions, and no, you don't owe me anything. And get into the programs, please. They're there. And with respect to mental health, please reach out to people, please. It's a tough time, but even in general, mental health is a very tough issue with law enforcement. Thank you so much, Doctor, for doing this. I think we need more of it out there to help people, because we are such a tight-knit community when it comes to mental health, 9/11 or not. We really do have to rely on each other. And my phone number is there. That's my cell phone. It's the same cell phone my kids have. 2 of them are away in college and one's in high school. So that's who they call. I'm there for anybody who needs it.
I did want to add something, Dr. Rogers. Speaking to the paperwork, it can be a lot. So anyone who is considering whether or not they should do this, saying, oh, I am not sick enough, I'm not going to get sick, I was just there, but I'm feeling okay, it's just a runny nose, it's just a little cough. You're not doing this for you. You're doing it for your family. It's the greatest act of love that you can show them. You've shown your love to your country by showing up. Show the love to your family by doing the paperwork.
Thank you, Teresa. And I was actually going to ask you to share any final words for anyone that maybe have similar experiences such as you. Any final words of encouragement? Or
I think the encouragement would be to get involved. It might feel like it hurts really a lot to poke the wound or even start to peel off the scab, but to continue to stay involved with other people who really understand this unique situation, and to do the paperwork, reach out, get that taken care of, because you never know when the shoe is going to drop. When the shoe drops, you know that you already have a crutch to stand on and someone to lean against. So I encourage everyone to not only do the paperwork, but to build their network, and the network is waiting for you. So be encouraged knowing that you're not going to walk into it alone.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, this has been such a powerful, powerful morning with the information shared and the knowledge shared. We often think about 9/11 as the attacks and persons that succumb to those attacks, but now we learn that they're still suffering, even post 9/11. And it's a powerful, powerful story. Thank you, Tom, Matt, Teresa, and even Lauren for coming on and sharing your stories and being so brave and vulnerable, and letting everyone see that, you know, there's similar stories here, and that you can get through it with the support of each other and family members. If anyone you know would like to talk with someone in hopes of processing and understanding your feelings, you can dial star 988, which is a new national mental health hotline. I'm sorry. You can also engage with insurance companies to put you in contact with mental health providers and services. There are professionals trained to help us navigate through these difficult moments and provide guidance. Remember, you are not alone. You are not alone, right? My name is Dr. Leslie Rogers. I can also be reached. I put my information in the comments section, and so you can reach me there as well. Tom?
Yeah, could I just end my part of the segment by reading out the names?
Absolutely.
This is in no specific order. 17 FBI agents, 4 professional staff. Dennis Benelli, Steve Carr, William Bob Craig, Brian Cruz, Lori Fournier, Jack S., Jerry Job, Mark C. Johnston, David LaValle, Mark Mikulski, Thomas Manel, Melissa Morrow, Robert Roth, Jerry Senator, Rex Stockham, Paul Wilson, Wesley Yu, Nicole Conti, Homer Lewis, Brian Myers, Saul Talker, Ann Call, and Lou Tao. There are others that are, as we said, are working through the process, but these are the official names that are on or going up on the wall for the FBI martyrs.
Thank you for sharing them, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone. Absolutely. Thanks everyone for attending. I hope that you're able to take away knowledge and the importance of this program, and the importance of getting yourselves involved in this program. And I just, you know, my heart goes out to all of you, and I really appreciate your attendance. I will say I will be back on this evening. I'm on Mondays at 7:00 p.m. talking about men's mental health. Let's talk men's mental health. So if you can join me tonight as well. When I forget when you were talking earlier about you know, having an illness and not, you know, going right away to get it checked out, right? And then, you know, the importance of doing so, having done so. We talk about that under men's mental health as well, right? Having men go get checked out without the fear of being weak or et cetera. So we'll be on tonight, this evening on Instagram at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking about men's mental health. So guys,
I'm gonna end with one comment myself. And it's the way Louis Alvarez used to end all of his emails when he was going through, all of his posts when he was going through chemotherapy, which was take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And in private moments with him, I can tell you what he meant by that was take care of yourselves so you can take care of each other, which sort of feeds into exactly what you were just talking about men's health issues and men's mental health, because taking care of yourselves actually allows you to take care of more of the other people that are on here. So you can take care of each other much better if you take care of yourselves first. So please take care of yourselves and take care of each other.
Absolutely. I'll hang on for, I don't know if you guys have about 5 minutes to see if there's any questions, about 3
Sure.
minutes or so. Are there any questions from anyone out there for either Tom, Matt, Teresa? Lauren, I know you're out there. If you want to jump on, you can. Any questions out there from anyone? Any comments?
My daughter says thank you to the FBI Agents Association for the Memorial College Fund.
One of our finest students.
Thank
I'm
you
gonna
for
clear.
being
I don't
great.
last thing. So nobody on this or anybody that you know has missed any deadline to file anything. I don't do legal advertising. I don't like it. I don't need to remind anybody what 9/11 was like, and that's just a personal thing. Probably a bad businessman in me, but at the same time, I don't do it. A lot of times people get confused by commercials and ads that they see out there. There's a lot of people out there that think that they've missed things. Nobody has missed anything. I will stand by that. You've not missed a deadline. You've not missed a time period. It is not too late. One last story for myself. I've been doing this for over a decade, taking care of people. I just got into the World Trade Center Health Program myself this year. I've been to all of these things and done all of these things and been an advocate for everybody else. And in 2023, I went into the World Trade Center Health Program. So I don't think it's hypocritical that I'm telling everybody to get in there, but I can tell you it's not too late. And that's from somebody who's actually been doing this since the program existed, to advocate for people. And here I am. I just joined the World Trade Center Health Program in 2023. So you have not missed anything. Please go into the programs.
Okay.
Hey, there's a question about feedback from the new healthcare providers.
So it ranges between the disaster and frustration and it's okay. I think it leads to the first couple, but like any government-run program, and this isn't a pox on anybody, you have to just not give up. Don't ever give up. If you were there, you'll see these things everywhere. And I was with the special master yesterday. Her simple question was, were you there? You know if you were there. So then the answer to the question is, I was there. Don't ever let these systems beat you, whether it's the health program or the VCF. If you're eligible, nobody deserves it. I never use the word deserve. If you're eligible to be in these programs, then you're eligible to be in these programs. They can be frustrating. You know, I compliment and comment about the FBI sometimes because there's a lot of people that try to do their own things, and that's great. It's incredibly smart people. But I also see that sometimes the agents in the FBI get the most frustrated because it doesn't work right away. And I understand that. I understand where that comes from because it's common sense. Like, why is this a big issue? I have a letter from HRD. Why is it taking so long? And then they switch programs. Don't ever stop. About half my day these days is dealing with World Trade Center Health Program questions that come up about providers changing bills, getting people's bills back. There's people on here that could talk to that better than me because they've experienced it themselves. Don't ever give up. I'll be your cheerleader through the whole thing, to be very honest with you. But at the same time, you know, don't ever stop because, like you said, what's the feedback? I'm not sure if that's the answer they were looking for, but yes, there's a tremendous amount of negative feedback about the national program. The New York City programs are a bit better because they're all in one place. Mount Sinai, Northwell, NYU, Rutgers, those are places that everybody before you and after you, they've seen 9/11 responders. The national program has its hiccups, but you don't stop. And I know the frustrations, and I know the frustrations from this group because you have higher expectations for things. I've also seen this group more so than any other group walk away from things in the frustration. I will say that. So on one side of it, it is certainly a group that knows how to navigate certain issues. And it's on another side of it, I've seen a lot of people walk away like, this is horrible. I'm not going to bother doing it anymore. I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm more than happy to help go through that. If you've been denied, because plenty of people from the FBI were originally denied. Some people are in as survivors instead of responders. The key issue there, and Tom and I have a joke about this, in NYPD, we use the $1 term called security. So there's all these people who are around ground zero doing security that are in this responder program. And the FBI, you like to use the $2 word called surveillance. Okay, well, surveillance down there was security at ground zero. The World Trade Center Health Program thinks that surveillance is an investigatory word, and they think that security is a responder word. Chances are, the people who were doing surveillance were standing next to a uniformed person who probably didn't know who they were. But anyway, but they were looking for the same exact things. If you see something, say something. But because you use a different word, the program will put you into a different program, because they're like, it's surveillance, it's investigatory. And we try to move them over. So there's a lot of people in the FBI that actually should be in the responder program that got put in the survivor program based on verb, because you use smarter words.
And Matt, what is the possibility? And I talked with Scott Stanley this morning, and one of the efforts I think we're going to start banging the drum on is, New York has a Center for Excellence, and everything is done. Why don't we get in Washington, D.C., George Washington Hospital to come on board as a center of excellence and give people in the mid-Atlantic and southern places a really good place to go where you're going to get really good treatment, and not to a warehouse district where you have, somebody taking your blood for 9/11 stuff, and then the person next to you is getting their parole blood work taken, which is exactly what happened in a lot of these places that I've been to.
The New York State Police used to have a joke that they would go, if they were upstate New York in the national program, they would go in, they would get a physical, and they'd collar up at the end of the day as on their way out, clearing warrants. So it's real. So thank you for bringing that up. I'm sorry. There's 2 locations that have now come online that are very important to this group. For those who are down in the North Carolina area, Duke has now come back online. It's not a quote-unquote center of excellence, but they have more of a driving force in what they were involved with. They were very much involved in the health program under the old LHI system. They have a lot of doctors that have been incredibly involved, and they have the glioblastoma specialist in the world at Duke. And then, there are, the Cleveland Clinic is another one that just came online. They're not considered centers of excellence, but given their university level status, they're definitely places you can have everything done in one location. Under the LHI system, you had these preferred locations. One was up in Boston, and one was out in California. That collapsed when LHI got underbid by MCA, and there's not a facility there. Given Virginia, it makes no sense, the fact that down in Virginia, you've got this sort of triangle of Maryland, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and an enormous amount of people who were there, that they don't have one there. I'm with you 100%. It's a contract issue. They just started the new contract. I wish they did have one, because the centers of excellence, especially in the more highly populated areas, make complete sense. So many people retired in North Carolina. So many people retired the Carolinas and Florida, and the mountains of West Virginia. That one might be a tough sell to get somebody up in the woods there to do one, but at the same time, there needs to be better access for folks. There absolutely does need to be better access. And it's contracts and politics.
Matt, let me read this next comment. Lauren, I think, so I was trying to bring you up. However, I had to do some research because I couldn't understand why it wasn't working. There's only 3 up at a time. I can only bring 3 persons up at a time. Sorry about that. So this comment says, I've been enrolled in both for several years, but the new provider can't seem to find a provider within a day's drive of me. It's been 2 months waiting on a yearly checkup.
So if they reach out to me, a lot of times I go through what's called 9/11 Health Watch, which is Ben Shavat and other places where I can usually reach out behind the curtain a little bit to get that squared away. I don't know where the person lives. But at the same time, yes, that's a common thing where people are told they can't, within hours and days or other locations. We have to just keep pushing for it and just keep asking the questions, not knowing where they are. I've had people, so geography is a strange thing. In New York, I had somebody who was in one program who lived in Bronx.
Oh, you cut out. There you go. You cut out, Matt.
Somebody who was living in New York. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I had somebody who was living in New York that got sent to New Jersey because they were in the national program for their physical. Then somebody who lived 10 minutes away from where the New Jersey physical was got sent to Manhattan to do their physical. So sometimes it just has to do with where they draw a circle and they think the number of miles are closer. There can be things even cross state lines. Sometimes you have problems because it's medical licensing issues, but it's something that we can certainly work through. They were supposed to offer old providers in the LHI system to come back into the system. We found out that that really didn't happen, and many of the providers will actually come into the MCA system. So a lot of times you'll find out the people who did your physicals for years before were actually never really asked, and MCA swears that they did, but they didn't. Or they didn't really do it. They sent a letter out that got thrown into the circular file probably, but there was no concerted effort. But they've been now trying to move people in. They're trying to make the national program better. They've added more providers through an Aetna system. It's not Aetna, it's an Aetna system. So the one thing I can say is just don't give up. Do not give up. And if there's bills that are there are ways to deal with those bills. You shouldn't have to pay them.
Dr. Rogers, I understand that you can only pull up 3 people at a time, and I know that Lauren is in the wings.
Mhm.
Lauren has a lot to say about her support group, so I'm happy to log off so that she can hop on here, because what she has to say is invaluable to this. I do appreciate your time and bringing light to all of this, but I know that Lauren has some invaluable news to share. So I will log off and watch online, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And it was such a pleasure speaking with you, meeting you today.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
You all have a good day.
Mhm.
Thanks, Teresa.
Okay, Lauren. Oh, here you go. Let me try. I do have a quick question. What's the prognosis once you're diagnosed?
So I was with the Dr. Prezant from the fire department 2 days ago, and it's interesting because he brought up a statistic about 9/11 cancers in general, and this is across the board. It's not just multiple myeloma. That there's certainly a higher percentage of cancers that are being diagnosed in 9/11 responders from all of the sites: Pentagon, Shanksville, Fresh Kills, the warehouse, other locations that are there. But because of the World Trade Center Health Program, there's a higher percentage of diagnosis, but there's a higher percentage of survivability that they're seeing in the 9/11 cancers. Now, I see them as very aggressive. They can be very aggressive cancers, but I can see what he's talking about. There's a lot of early diagnosis that's going on. It's putting people into a system where they're able to get screening that they wouldn't get normally through their ordinary health insurance. It puts you sort of on a bit of a higher lookout for things. Bumps that we blow off for 20 years, suddenly don't blow off, you ask about. So the survivability and the treatment modalities that are out there has shown a higher survivability rate. That was from him. This is the guy he's the FDNY's doctor, and he's one of the World Trade Center Health Program's most respected physicians. That's his statement, not mine. He's the one who 2 days ago at a conference said, higher diagnosis rates, higher survivability rates. But in the program, that's the whole concept of it. Be in the program.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Lauren, try logging off and back on to kind of reset. Log off, try logging on off and then back on so that we can reset it. And then we'll bring you out. Are there any other comments? Here we go. Let me see if this will work.
I'm going to address something on the mental health side of things. It's a little bit raw, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're a group of people that don't like to ask for help. We're a group of people that will help anybody else. And unfortunately, we're a group of people that has a higher than normal suicide rate. This is both 9/11 and 9/11 related. And there's always people out there that are more than willing to talk and help. And I'm certainly one of them at 2 a.m. or any other time, which is why I give my cell phone. But I'm going to just say, because I have to have these conversations with clients, and I will tell you, that I had to have this conversation. So this afternoon, I'm going to a 9/11 memorial, and one of my best friend's names is being read. Because back in November, which is, you know, why I couldn't make it to certain events, my friend Brian passed away of 9/11 cancer. He was a fireman. And, you know, I had to actually have a conversation with him 2 weeks before he passed away, where I had to blatantly say to him, Brian, I know this is tough, and I know this has been a brutal road for you. And he's got 4 kids, all of whom were 3 high school, 2 in college, and 1 who just graduated from college. And Brian was the kind of person who never wanted to be a burden on anybody. He never wanted to burden anybody with his health care. He never wanted to burden anybody with anything. He was the guy who would do anything for you, but didn't want to burden anything. I actually had to have a conversation with him, as I would do with many others, saying, you cannot remove yourself from the equation. We all know what that means. You cannot remove yourself from this situation, because your family will lose all of the benefits. And as much as I hate to say that, that is God's honest truth, because the agencies, the departments, the benefits programs treat mental health and mental health related suicide, and even if it's related to the illness. I've had the World Trade Center Health Program doctors say to me, this person was going to die anyway. Why won't the program support it? Because they took their own life. I'm like, I think they should, but at the same time, they don't. That is a stark reality of these programs. The PSOB just came online recently with mental health issues for suicide cases. I'm actually not going to get into who it is, but dealing with at least one from the FBI that's a 9/11 related issue where somebody passed away after they were diagnosed with an illness. But I have to just please get that, you know, that is we don't like to talk about it amongst each other. We don't like to talk about suicide, but it's there, and it's very real. And we're a group of people who don't like to burden others, especially their families. And I have to have that conversation with people who are terminally ill, saying you actually can't. You can't, because your family's benefits are actually really, 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 you know, putting aside anything else, the emotional side to it, on a very legit, real side of it, it's something that's there. And I think that having this outlet to you or to other mental health professionals is incredibly important for people at every level, whether they're sick or not, because it's something that's out there. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Lauren, I sent you an invite. I'm not sure. But if this doesn't work, no worries. I would love to have you back on and up here. I'm not sure what. It's probably because we were at the capacity before and it's just stuck.
I'm gonna use myself in a second. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. So, Lauren, if this doesn't work, we're going to jump off. And I would love to have you back on to tell your stories as well, give you an opportunity. So we can talk about that. Let's stay in touch. So guys, we're going to jump off now. This has been an amazing topic. Again, get engaged if you need to. Get engaged with either Tom or Matt to find out more about these programs that are available for you if needed. And also, don't be afraid or guarded toward engaging in mental health services as well. If you want to talk to me, I put my information in the comment section as well. And then you can follow me on Instagram or other social medias. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere is Dr. Leslie Rogers. So this has been
Can I ask that Lauren, if you can hear, can you just put the group name in, the FBI agents, the FBI 9/11 responders group that you're one of the co-chairs of, so that people can see that? She runs a group as well within the agency with strictly people who are FBI staff. It's not outsiders or anybody else. And
I'll also put that on my social media when this video is posted. So I'll put both programs. We have the World Trade Center Health Program, the Victims Compensation Program. There was another program that you guys mentioned earlier.
Well, specifically for FBI agents, the FBI Agents Association Memorial College Fund, which takes care of the children or students or spouses of agents who pass, and the 9/11 community is part of that, in a large part of it.
Okay.
And the Membership Assistance Fund for members of the FBI Agents Association, and in certain cases, people who are support employees, professional support employees, when they are in need also.
So Membership Assistance Fund is specifically for FBI?
Yes.
Okay. And Lauren, what's the name of your organization? Do either of you know?
It's
Yeah. What is it? It's a Facebook page, 9/11.
I'm not in my system. I'm sorry.
That's I can get it from her later.
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, we're going to end now. Thank you guys so much for attending. And if there's nothing else, we'll end. And I'll follow up with Tom to try and figure out what Lauren's.
Great. Thank you very much, Doc. I appreciate it. Matt, thanks
Please.
for coming
Absolutely. Keep in touch, guys. Keep in touch.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
on. Take care.
Talk
Have
soon.
a good day. Raise a glass, Matt. May not be the mental health professional's way, but it doesn't hurt.
It's okay. It's okay. Talk soon.
Take care.
Peer support group for FBI responders. Let me write that down. Awesome. Thank you so much, Teresa.